If you struggle with resentment, this episode is for you. This week, we're going to talk about what resentment is, how it affects you, and how you can get rid of it so that you can improve your relationship with you and everyone else in your life. Welcome to How to Be a Dangerous Woman, a place where we dive deep into breaking down into what makes amazing women just like you think, feel, and perform at levels beyond what you thought was possible. This is a place where women learn what it truly feels like to have it all without guilt, without imposter syndrome, and without overwhelm getting in the way. I'm Dr. Crystal Connor, and together we're going to explore the health, mindsets, and strategies that distinguish the world's top performing women. And you're going to walk away with the exact tools that you need to build and create a life on your own terms. Hi there, my friends. I hope you're having a wonderful week so far. Today, I want to talk about resentment. It's something I have personally struggled with and been coached on, and something I've coached a lot of women on. Resentment is defined as being angry or holding a grudge against something or someone. You can feel resentment for something that was said or not said to you. You can be resentful for things that were done to you or things that weren't done to you. But like all of our feelings, resentment starts and ends with your thoughts. And trust me, I know. Whatever resentment you're holding on to, it feels completely justified. If I asked you to write out a list of exactly why you're resentful, I bet you wouldn't have a problem doing that. In fact, I bet you'd feel even more justified in holding on to the resentment after making your list. That's not up for debate today, whether you are or aren't justified. That doesn't matter. Because what I want you to do is to look at the effect that resentment has on your life, because that is what matters. Who are you? How do you show up in the world holding on to resentment? What do your relationships look like when resentment is a part of the equation? And the most important question, is that okay with you? Are you satisfied with the person you are being when you're resentful? Are you okay with the results it's producing in your life? And are you even aware of the results it's producing in your life? Resentment starts with your thoughts about a circumstance, something that was said, something that was done that you had a thought about. Now sit with that for a minute, because that's important. That's important because you are the one who holds the power in this. You've probably been giving your power away to the other person or to the circumstance, believing that you're resentful because of them, because of it. It almost feels like it's not even an option to not be resentful. But that stops now. You hold the power in whether you're resentful or not. And it is absolutely optional. No matter what it is, you do not have to hold resentment in your heart if you choose not to. So again, resentment starts with your thoughts. And like with so many of our other feelings, it's probably a should or a shouldn't thought. Think about it. Think about somebody that you resent. It could be the kid who picked on you in the 5th grade, which, by the way, I still remember her name. I'm not going to say it, but I still remember the girl's name that picked on me in the 5th grade. Or maybe it's the company that didn't hire you, even though you knew you were qualified. Or maybe it's even closer to home, and maybe it's your partner or your parents or your kids even. I've worked with so many women who hold resentment towards their parents for not being the type of parent they wanted or needed them to be. I've worked with women who are resentful towards their partners for not being who they thought they should be or who they thought they needed them to be. And you might not have ever thought about how that impacts your life, but you need to. You need to see how it impacts your life so that you can make an informed decision about how you want to deal with it. What do you want to do moving forward? You need to be able to make a conscious decision about that, because some of y'all have been holding on to resentment for so long that it's turned to anger and bitterness, and it is subconscious at this point because you've had the same thought pattern on repeat for years. And like I said, It feels like it's not even an option for you because you have not given yourself any other option but to be resentful. You have thoughts that are driving feelings of resentment. That feeling of resentment is driving your actions. Those actions are giving you the results that you have in your life. And if you don't like the results or some of the results in your life, you have to look at the thoughts that are driving the resentment and begin to challenge and pull each one of them down one by one. The thoughts are optional. The way you are thinking about that person or that situation is optional. I remember talking to an older gentleman years ago. He was probably in his mid 70s at the time. He was recalling to me a time when he had gone off to college and then had been put on a temporary suspension from school because of his grades. He was, of course, extremely devastated about that, and he ended up back home with his parents. He never returned to that college, and he spoke about how much he wanted to go back and how much his life would have been better and different had he been able to return. But what really, really struck me about this conversation was that 50 plus years later, he was still resentful towards his parents that he didn't get to go back to school. He was resentful and he blamed them because it turns out that the school had sent a letter to his home inviting him to come back, but he didn't get it until it was too late. Think about that. For 50 plus years, this gentleman believed that everything that had gone wrong in his life started because his parents never gave him the letter to return to school. And he recalled it as if it were yesterday. He spent over half of his life thinking that they should have given him the letter and he should have been able to return to the school that he loved. And because he didn't, his life wasn't the way that it should have been. And because he spent his life thinking that he was a victim, he played that out in everything he did. He experienced failed relationships with partners, broken relationships with his children, a career that he didn't enjoy but stayed in for years because he didn't think there were any other options. Okay, now I know that's extreme, but I want you to see how impactful resentment can be in your life unattended. When you're harboring resentment, you are hyper focused on the person or the situation that you feel resentment towards. Your feelings are going to drive you to act in a way that continues to perpetuate that resentment, bitterness, and anger. It inevitably is going to keep you trapped in a prison of your own making. This was a really bitter pill that I had to swallow just recently when I was talking to my own coach. We're talking about the resentment that I was holding on to for a past situation in my life. I was having a lot of thoughts about how things shouldn't have been that way and how the other person was really to blame and they shouldn't have been that way. But what she said to me immediately snapped me out of that. She said, "You're mad and resentful at the situation, and that's not fair because the truth is you settled. You accepted it as it was when you had the option to do something different." And at that moment, I knew that I had imprisoned myself, but didn't realize it. I had been holding the keys, but was looking to the situation to set me free. She asked me, "So are you really resentful towards the situation, or are you resentful to yourself for settling for it?" And that hit hard. And I want you to think about that. Are you resentful towards a person or a situation thinking that it is them or their fault that you feel that way? Are you looking at them as if they are holding you captive when truly you are the one keeping yourself locked up? If this is a big aha moment, I want you to be brave enough to acknowledge it. There isn't any shame. And when it came to answering my coach's question about resenting myself, I realized that I really did resent myself. I resented the fact that I had settled in the situation, that I didn't speak up, that I didn't act differently in the situation. So if this resonates with you, allow yourself to feel that. Allow yourself to own this and feel the resentment for yourself. Don't worry, we're not going to stay here for long, but long enough. I want you to feel it because I don't want you to ever run away or avoid your feelings. You can handle this. Allow yourself to feel resentment, anger, bitterness, and shame if it's there. I sat in my resentment for about 5 or 10 minutes after my call with my coach ended. It hit me hard. I had thoughts like, I should have known better. I'm smarter than that. I can't believe that I didn't see this before. I should have said this. I went down a shame spiral, honestly. And if you're feeling that, I want you to know it's okay. Because very quickly, I realized that I was just doing what I knew to do at the time. It was all I knew. I thought that I was making the right choices. I thought it was what I should be doing at that time. So I quickly was able to get to a place of compassion for that version of me that felt like I needed to do things to make other people happy, or I needed to do things the way that society says good girls do. I needed to follow that script. I wasn't the woman that I am now. We're dangerous women now. There were no thoughts of being dangerous back then. And so, of course, I chose to settle. Being dangerous terrified me then. This is what I want you to see in your situation. I want you to see that you did exactly what you thought needed to be done in that situation, in that relationship. You did what you thought was the right thing. We don't set out to do the wrong things. We don't set out to make choices that aren't the best for us. That isn't what you did. And if you transferred your resentment from a situation or a person to yourself, I want you to acknowledge, feel it, and then free yourself of that. Because whether or not the resentment is towards someone or something else, or it's directed at you, the feeling of resentment is not likely to ever drive you to take actions that create results in your life that you want. So I want you to think about that person or situation that you feel resentful towards. Write out all of the thoughts you have. And we don't sugarcoat stuff. Write it out. You're not going to send it to them. I want you to identify the ones that make you feel resentful when you think it. This requires you to sit and think and feel. We often don't do that. We like to step around and away from thinking and feeling, especially when it has the potential to be painful. But I want you to lean into this work. You can handle this. So when you identify the thought, and again, there may be a ton of them, but I want you to pick the one that when you think it immediately triggers resentment for you. Now, I want you to write out all of the things that you do when you feel resentful. If I had a camera on you being resentful, what would you be doing, girl? When I feel resentful, I ignore. I am short with the person. I can be rude, dismissive. I avoid being around them. I distract myself with other things like work or being a super busy mom. I don't address my feelings. I don't address the situation or the person. That's me. What do you do? And when you have a list of what you do or don't do because of the resentment, I want you to then write out the results that you get from that list. For me, it causes a rift in the relationship with them and with me. I am not being who I want to be. I'm not showing up in the world like I want to. I'm overwhelmed because I'm constantly avoiding the feelings instead of facing and dealing with them. My relationship or the situation doesn't get any better. That's me. What are the results for you? Do you like your results that are created because of the feelings of resentment? If not, you must deal with the thoughts. Don't just try your hardest not to feel resentment. Deal with the root, the thought. I went from thinking that things shouldn't have happened, it should have been different, to I settled for a situation that I wouldn't settle for as the woman I am today. That thought doesn't make me feel like necessarily happy, but it also doesn't make me feel resentful towards myself. It makes me feel compassion for that version of me that was so scared to break apart from the status quo that she couldn't move. But it also makes me feel so powerful for doing this work to realize that and to be able to consciously do something different in the future. So what thought do you need to shift? How can you reframe it so that you move yourself from resentment to something else? It does not have to be happy, elated, or anything overly positive. I just want you to move yourself from resentment to the next available emotion using the next available, believable thought. I can tell you without a doubt, when I release resentment, first for that past situation, and then resentment for myself for being in that past situation, I felt free. Like I had been struggling with resentment for a long time. And just like that, I was able to let it go. And every time it tries to resurface, as it will for you too, I tear it right back down. So don't feel like you're broken or that you did something wrong when the thoughts return, because that is completely normal and expected. You've been rehearsing those thoughts for a long time, years. Don't think it's just going to go away without a fight. But when it does, you gently remind yourself without judgment of your new thoughts. That's your homework, to work out resentment from your heart and your mind. Identify the thought, identify the actions you take or don't take because of resentment, and look at the results those actions create. Make a decision to either keep resentment, if you like it, keep it, or to deal with it. If you're ready to deal with it, do not settle for living a life filled with resentment. I want you to aggressively go after that and do your work. It's not easy, but it's worth it. And if you want to be free, you will do this work all day long. Okay, my friends, that's all for this week. That was a little aggressive, right? Thank you so much for listening. I would really love for you to leave a review for this show on whatever platform you're listening to it on, because it is tremendously helpful in making it easier for other women to find the show. Until next Monday, God bless you and have a wonderful week. If you found today's episode helpful, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. And I'd really love to hear how you're doing. You can find me at Dr. Crystal Connor on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I can't wait to hear what progress you've made. So until next week, see ya.